The town of Hollow Creek was nestled in a valley shrouded in perpetual mist. Its few remaining residents spoke in hushed tones about the place, warning travelers to avoid it, especially after nightfall. Clara had heard the stories, but felt an inexplicable pull towards the abandoned town. Something in her past was connected to Hollow Creek, and she intended to find out what. The mist swallowed her car as she drove down the winding road, and soon she could barely see the asphalt beneath her tires. The radio crackled with static, then fell silent. Clara gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white. She didn't need the old maps to tell her she was close. She could feel it in her bones. Hollow Creek emerged from the fog like a ghostly apparition. The buildings were dilapidated, their windows broken and doors hanging ajar. Clara parked her car and stepped out, the thick silence wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket. The air smelled of damp earth and decay. She walked through the deserted streets, each step echoing in the void. Memories tugged at the edges of her mind, fragmented images of a childhood spent in a place not unlike this one. Her parents had always been vague about her early years, but Clara was determined to uncover the truth. A figure moved in the distance, disappearing around a corner. Clara's heart raced, and she quickened her pace, turning into an alleyway. The figure was gone, but something else caught her eye. A small, ornate box lay on the ground, its lid slightly ajar. Inside, a tarnished locket glinted in the dim light. She picked it up and opened it, revealing a faded photograph of a young girl who looked hauntingly familiar. A sudden noise behind her made Clara spin around. The alley was empty, but she felt a presence, something watching her. She clutched the locket and hurried back to the main street, where the fog seemed thicker than before. The buildings loomed over her, oppressive and menacing. Clara stumbled upon an old church at the edge of town. Its doors creaked open as she approached, and she stepped inside, the air thick with the scent of mold and old wood. The interior was dark, save for a faint light emanating from the altar. As she moved closer, she saw a book lying open, its pages filled with cryptic symbols and drawings. A sense of déjà vu washed over her. She had seen these symbols before, in nightmares that plagued her since childhood. The pages seemed to move under her gaze, the drawings shifting and changing. One image stood out, a tree with gnarled branches, its roots entwined around a stone monument. Clara knew this tree. It stood in the center of Hollow Creek Cemetery. The cemetery was even more eerie than the town, the gravestones barely visible through the thick fog. Clara found the tree easily, its twisted form unmistakable. At its base, the stone monument was covered in moss, but she could still make out the inscription, "To those who lost their way." A child's laughter echoed through the cemetery, sending chills down Clara's spine. She turned to see a little girl standing a few feet away, her dress tattered and eyes hollow. Clara's breath caught in her throat. The girl looked exactly like the one in the photograph. "Who are you?" Clara asked, her voice trembling. The girl tilted her head, a sad smile playing on her lips. "You know me, Clara. You left me here." Clara shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "No, I don't understand." The girl pointed to the base of the tree, where the ground seemed disturbed. "You buried the truth here." Clara dropped to her knees, her hands clawing at the earth. The dirt was cold and damp, but she dug relentlessly until her fingers hit something hard. She uncovered a small wooden box, identical to the one she had found earlier. Inside was a diary, its pages yellowed and brittle. As she read, memories came flooding back of a twin sister she had forgotten, lost in the woods one foggy night. Their parents had moved away, leaving the past buried in Hollow Creek. Clara had blocked it out, but the town had never forgotten. A hand touched her shoulder, and she looked up to see the girl standing over her. "You remember now," the girl said softly. "You remember me." Clara nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry. I never meant to leave you." The girl knelt beside her, her touch cold but comforting. It's time to go home, Clara. Together. The fog thickened and the world around them began to fade. As Clara held her sister's hand, the darkness of Hollow Creek enveloped them, pulling them into the past they could not escape, and the town's whispers echoed their fate for eternity.